All right, Celadon, um, chapter one. Pottery is like love, a form of impossible perfection. I had been in the studio most of the afternoon, escaping from the thousand duties a loved one's passing requires by mixing a fresh batch of Celadon number 147 when the girl interrupted me. Celadons are the filet mignon of ceramic glazes, the best of the best. Yet they are also difficult, temperamental. No two turn out exactly alike. Some celadons are as extinct as the passenger pigeon, the recipes lost, the potters who made them long since passed. Thus, in certain parts of Asia, a single cup the size of a cereal bowl can cost as much as a luxury car. Assuming, of course, that it was authentic to a certain potter in a certain place in a certain time, and that the potter is dead. The paradox of most fine art is that the best thing the artist can do to increase the value of his or her craft is to expire. If there are teacups that cost as much as a car, a large vase known to be from a dead potter, such as one with a particular type of long extinct celadon, can be priceless. While I can't complain of the modest living I've made with clay, and am honored my work is prized enough to be part of more than a few museums' collections, the truth is I am rarely happy with the pieces I produce. My glazes, in particular, have never been what I envisioned them to be. Specifically to the hundreds of Celadon recipes I've tried over these years, only number 147 has come close to what I have striven for, and it has taken me a lifetime to arrive there. Even so, where others see the beauty, I see the flaws. But it is useful at times to have an impossible task, as one can always find a little more to do when seeking to avoid something. And my wife's passing away has been as difficult to accept as it has been to deal with. Making 147 is as good a thing as any to fill the void. This glaze is, I admit, spiteful, even schizophrenic at times, and if fired incorrectly, if the cone melts at a temperature even slightly different than the 2300 degrees Fahrenheit it requires, it comes out looking muddy, often with a moire of bubbles that screams failure to me or any other potter who knows what a true celadon should be. Despite the crazing, those fine cracked lines within the melted glass, the surface should feel as smooth as silk stockings on thighs. I always hold my breath when I'm opening the kiln, hoping what's inside has burned itself into beauty. Celadon number 147 can be perfect if the temperature is just right and the wood fire reduces the perfect amount of oxygen and the additional firing ingredients come in at just the right time and the moon is rising in the house of Saturn. It turns a truly otherworldly green, as iridescent and mesmerizing as the inside of an abalone shell, a peacock's tail shimmering in the sun. No other glaze on this planet can come close. I'm joking about the moon and the house of Saturn, by the way. The magic in clay is entirely terrestrial. But in all the years that have passed, I can count on one hand the number of times a firing has gone perfectly. In mixing this batch of 147, I'm well aware that it is my last chance to get it perfect. But in pottery, as in life, as in love, it is not the end that matters, but the process, the journey one takes, not the getting there. And certainly not perfection. In fact, the Japanese have a word for the perfecting flaw, wabi sabi, a frog jumping into an otherwise still pond, a blemish on a girl's porcelain skin, a mar on otherwise smooth glaze that shows understanding of just how imperfect we all are. A potter I once knew when I was young and just learning the art used to say that in clay there are four joys: the joy of shaping it, of firing it, of glazing it, and the joy of giving it away. In my own career, I have stuck to those four joys. But what motivates me, drives me, pushes me to my limits is the motivation that comes from the impossible pursuit of perfect celadon. With the mask on and the drill going, it was impossible to hear the girl knock if she had, so she had to come all the way in, and she surprised me. I have Potter's deafness anyway, a product of years of accidental inhalation of the glazing powders, a constant ringing in my ears like a little brass bell, tinnitus. I might not have heard her even without the background noise, but I hadn't expected a person there, and in flinching, I lifted the drill too high. A stream of glaze spun out across the room, hitting the tiles and the table, and some even reached the ceiling, leaving a spot of drab mud the color of a wasp's nest. Amazing that this brown blotch might, seared at 2300 degrees, turn impossibly iridescent green. What is it? I asked, trying my best not to light into her. I'm so sorry, she said in Spanish, and began trying to clean the mess up. Stop, I said. Please, I'm working. Just tell me what you came here for, and then leave me alone. She answered, still looking terrified that I was going to fire her, or perhaps she was worried that I'd fire her grandmother, whom she was helping while we put the house in order and prepared for the estate sale. It was a mammoth job, as Marin was a bit of a clutterer and had filled the house with trinkets from our 5 decades of trips together. Every ceramics conference I visited, every art show, every business trip she tagged along for, she came back with some souvenir. Never a piece of pottery, not once, but something else to remember the trip by. A stuffed bear that would sit in a corner forever, tiny glass pigs that she arranged on a windowsill, thus preventing it from being opened as surely as if it had been painted shut. The clothes, racks and racks and racks, most worn once, if at all. To me, the souvenirs all blurred together, but for her, the trips were as clear from these items as if she'd taken photographs. The bear from Poland, the pigs from Toronto, this blouse from Brazil, that one from Hungary. Writing this makes it sound as if I'm upset with her or angry, but they all seem infinitely dear now that she lies under 6 deep feet of earth at New St. Mary's Cemetery. I can't touch these things, can't move them, certainly can't watch them be put into boxes or tossed in the trash. For several weeks after she passed away, I walked around the house feeling as if I, not my wife, were the ghost, unable to sit in chairs that she had sat in or to sleep in our bed. If it weren't for my situation and what that will mean in a few years, I would keep it all like a personal museum of her bric-a-brac, Marin's museum. Even the dust on the windowsill pigs is hers in a strange way. I couldn't so much as dust them. So I was very happy to have Lupita Villarosa, aka Mi Senora, aka my housekeeper, handling it. Her taking over freed me to mix glazes and throw pots for a little longer. Accepting as I am that all things, even art, must come to an end, I plan to have one more firing before moving on. Perhaps it will be my best yet, my swan song. Calm down, I said to the girl, all the while trying to remember her damn name. She had told it to me more than once, and yet I couldn't ever seem to keep it in my head. Age, I believe. It robs you of those things that you used to take for granted. I was always good with names. Now I couldn't even tell you the syllables. Could be anything from Flore to Angelique. Tinnitus doesn't help. You just don't remember things well when 1,000 hornets are buzzing around inside your head all the time. Not Lupita, though. I know she has a different name than her grandmother. Please ignore the mess, I said, filling a Dixie cup with ice water and handing it to her. Here, sit. Calm down. For the first time, she smiled. Just the barest flicker, but it was enough. I know you don't like to be disturbed when you're working, she began. My grandmother tells me all the time, your grandmother knows me well. I know we're supposed to put everything, no matter what, into the trash bags, but I found something. I just throw it away, I interrupted. If you stop to ask me each time something seems vital, it will be 20 years before the house is empty. It's something important. I smiled. Yes, of course, everything is, but no, not just what I found, it's where I found it. I stopped mopping the floor and looked at her. The poor thing still seemed terrified, wanting to comply with my wishes, yet not be blamed for tossing something priceless. I relented. Go on. The empty Dixie cup had been sacrificed to the stress gods. She crumpled its corpse in her hands. It was in her closet, your wife's, a box. I know that kind of box. I've seen those boxes when I've looked at my aunt's closets. She paused, twisting the crushed cup, her knuckles white. Her wedding dress. I knew it was that kind of box, and maybe you can't understand because you're an old man. Sorry, not old, you're a man, but I wanted to look at it. I've seen photos. It was such a beautiful dress, and I just thought maybe, yes, maybe I could buy it from you. My sister's getting married, and we can't afford to have a new one. That's why I opened it up, just to look, see if the size would be. I laughed. You can have the dress. How's that? Of course. Take it. I'm sure Marin will be happy to know it's making someone else happy. I paused a moment before saying, she doesn't need it anymore. I thought that would be the end of it, but the girl looked even more uncomfortable. I waited. Still nothing. She just looked at her feet. The Dixie cup, shapeless, lay discarded on the table. Just take it. No problem. Is there anything more? When I opened the box, she said, there was a letter sitting on top of it. The envelope was open and it looked like it had been mailed a long time ago, Senor Chase. From Japan. Addressed to your wife. She stopped. Senor Chase? Are you okay? My mind had blasted 1,000 light years away. We remember exactly where we were, what we were doing, when certain events occur. The death of JFK, the day men walked on the moon, the Challenger explosion, the planes hitting the World Trade Center, that letter and the awful tragedy surrounding it. I fumbled for a chair and sat there holding my temples. The girl talking all the while, her eyes wide, and me staring through her, back through the decades. I couldn't catch my breath. You can leave for the day, I told the girl. Mar, that was it, her name. Mar, the sea, Mar, like my wife's name, Cut. A name I should remember and yet somehow always forget. I'm worried about you, she said. I'll call an ambulance. I'll be fine, Senorita Mar. Please go. I need to be alone. Just let me call someone. No! Suddenly I was yelling at her, holding onto the table to keep my balance. Take the wedding dress and go home. How many times do I need to say I need to be alone? She leaped for the stairs as if I'd hit her. A faint slam of a car door seconds later told me she was gone. I doubted she'd even gone back upstairs to my wife's bedroom. But I would mail her the dress. I sat there trying to summon the strength to go up and see the letter with my own eyes, though I didn't need to. I knew exactly what it said. I had written it myself. I stared at the vase that is the centerpiece of my studio, as if to ask it a question, as if it could actually respond. It was 18 inches tall and just a simple universal form, like a cigar, wider in the middle than at the ends. My one and only keepsake from 2 years living in a hidden pottery town in southern Kyushu, the southernmost island of the archipelago that is Japan. An unassuming urn, but for the fact that the glaze was an absolute perfect celadon. It was dark by the time I lifted myself and floated, unbound by gravity, upward, dissolving through walls like the ghost I will be, and into my wife's bedroom, where that dress and the open letter on top confronted me. A feeling of dread seeped out from inside my guts. My fingers and toes, tingling and numb, felt like the leaves of a great sprawling vine that's suddenly been cut at the root. Thank you.